PodcastCoug Season 3, Episode 9.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we are all things Cougar football. 30 minutes of Coug talk. We're talking about Cal and our upcoming game against Colorado and Boulder. And welcome back to another week. Still King of the North. So the Cougs remain on top of the Pac-12 North all alone. We're actually the best team in the entire Pac-12. We've got eyes looking at it on us all over the country, how exciting it is. East Coast, West Coast, North Coast, South Coast, all of North America. We've got eyes on us, and it's just kind of great to be here. Of course, last year we were kind of here at this time, but we've got a lot of excitement, a lot of magical stuff going on as we continue to control our own destiny in the division after picking up another signature win against the California Golden Bears last Saturday. Yeah, right. So, it was just amazing how last August, Gardner Minshew was competing for a starting job at Washington State. And here we are in November, and he's being mentioned in the same conversation of some of the national top quarterbacks. The guy who came to Pullman in May from East Carolina, recognized as one of the 16 semifinalists for the 2018 Davey O'Brien Award, given annually to the best quarterback in all of college football. Davey O'Brien Foundation will be selecting 3 semifinalists, going down to 3 on November 19th. So hang tough, and we're going to see if Gardner is there. The winner is going to be announced on December 6th. So Cougs are 8-1, first time since 2002, and after our 19-13 brutal kind of hard to get through win over the Berkeley boys Saturday, and a game that was decided in the final minute. Now, remember last week I call these guys the Berkeley boys. I've been calling them for years, whether they play in Pullman or UC Berkeley. It's just a name that I call them. And final seconds of the game, Minshew found redshirt Aesop Winston in the back end zone. 32 seconds remaining in the game, winning a 10-yard touchdown. Cougs, of course, 8-1. They've only beat Berkeley, Cal, 2 of its last 13 meetings. Can you believe that? The last 13, meetings together, Washington State's only come away with a victory twice. That's amazing, against Cal. And so what a narrow victory it was against the Golden Bears, who are now 5-4. What a tough game to sit through. Saturday night's 19-13 win. And it was just weathering the storm, right? I mean, multiple storms, actually. We got the stop-and-go rain showers all day long, pelted Martin, and constantly kept Gardner and the Cougs out of rhythm as the Pac-12's top-scoring offense fell 3 touchdowns shy of matching its 40-point per average. We didn't even. It's not like we didn't show up. Cal's defense is by far the best in the Pac-12, okay? I mean, they're better than Utah, and I think they're better. They're going to be better than Washington, UW, right? I mean, Montlake, right? Wilcox has got that team, and they were last year. What an amazing defense they've got. And then there was a second storm, one generated by Wilcox, Justin Wilcox, and his defense. The defense. They seem to have a game plan against Washington State's air raid better than anybody else has figured it out. I mean, right? So, Utah's tried to figure it out, and so I think Wilcox has done a great job, and he's got better than anybody. There's Peterson. Peterson has got it figured out a little bit, and he does. But what Cal has accomplished is amazing. And so, it's on a night when the Cougs could never get the right bounce. Literally, on a few occasions, they were tested by the football gods who were throwing everything at us, right? Home, the Cougs were at home. And, it was back and forth, and it was just a war at Martin. And so anyway, it's just... the schedule this time of the year, it's just crazy. It gets down to these conference games. We've got it more difficult than the SEC. We really do. We don't play cupcake games at week 10, right? I mean, I don't care if it's Cal, Stanford, Utah. The Pac-12 is a solid up and down non-cupcake schedule. I mean, there's a couple of teams that are always rebuilding, but that's about it. So it's good to keep composure when it's tough in the game, and I think it's huge. I mean, it just shows us, defense wins games, and great teams win games. We're finding out a way to win. We've got leadership in Pelluer and Minshew, Gardner, and we've got depth. We're healthy. We're thanking our lucky stars. Washington State has a record that would indicate really Pac-12 dominance, right? But 5 of the 6 league wins have been decided in the fourth quarter, and I mean that's just crazy, right? With our only loss to USC, and 4 of those were decided by 6 points or less. And so while history has shown well for playing late, it took a little bit of effort to squeak out a 6-point victory over the Berkeley boys on Saturday night. Penalized 7 times for 80 yards. The Cougs were frequently playing at the mercy of the ref's whistle, right? We've seen it all season long. Second quarter targeting ejection sent Dominique Silvos back to the locker room, even though the video evidence suggests that he hit Cal, the tight end, Ian Buntley, legally. I mean, we've seen this before, on the chest, visible below the helmet. Of course, Leach can't comment on anything for legal reasons. I'm sure he's got attorneys advising him many times. You see it in the post presser. Leach says he can't comment. So obviously for legal reasons, Leach is not commenting on these outcomes that the officials have. But the Cougs lost a defensive starter and gave up, 15 precious yards that moved the Golden Bears down to the 21-yard line, but the Cougs didn't crack while only allowing the field goal from Cal, only a field goal. So similar circumstances would have caused other teams to just fold, right? To Coug it in the past, to dog it. But perhaps, last year's Cougar team, last year we went into Berkeley ranked number 8 in the nation, just like now, and we came out 37-3, losing 37-3. So, Cougs had to punch through more adversity in the third quarter, and right when it looked like Willie Taylor was going to return an interception 40 yards for a touchdown and put the Cougs up 20-10, the rush linebacker dropped the ball on the 3rd-yard line, tumbled it in the end zone, and took a few more odd bounces, slipping through Jihad Woods' hands before rolling through the back. But the Cougs eliminated what would have been a 14-point swing by holding Cal to a field goal on the other end, and Berkeley got the ball back on a touchback. So, we're consistent. That's the thing. We are consistent. Gardner has not failed to let us down once this year. Once. I said it last week, and I said it the week before. He's human, but he has not failed us yet. So we're steady, and that's the mark of a good team, right? I mean, it's a mark of a great team. Frankly, it's a great team. Minshew has not let us down. Never. Not once. So, Rose Bowl tickets requests went out on Monday, and you do have some time. You haven't jumped on to reserve. This is a reservation for your Rose Bowl tickets, January 1st. You've got time to do this, but if you are a CAF member, you've got that email. If not, become a member and get in line, get your request, because I think personally the PodcastCoug is, of course, we've got that championship game. We've got to win 2 of our 3 games, get into the championship. That's another story. We got to win down at Levi Stadium in San Francisco, and then we're in the Rose Bowl, and I think it's going to be the Ohio State. I really do. So, none of this top 4 team, I mean, it's just the chances of us making into the final playoffs is like winning the lotto. So Anyway, really, the Rose Bowl looks really like the natural, really looks like a natural. There's talk about the Fiesta Bowl and the Alamo Bowl. One of them is the second place team for the Pac-12, but we're going to see what happens. We just one thing I have to say is let's just cherish the moment. The guys are always starting to quickly talk about bowl games, and let's just focus on one. We're 1-0. Forget the one game at a time. I don't like that. Everybody says that. We're 1-0, and we're playing Colorado on Saturday, and we're 1-0, right? So that's the best way to do it. So, Cougs have 3 games left, as you know, Colorado, and then at home against Arizona, and then Washington, right, for the AC. So, Huskies, they've got a bye, and then they've got Oregon State and the AC. That's the Huskies' schedule. Now Washington wins the North by winning out, right? The Cougs win the North by 1 winning out, or 2 by beating UW and Colorado or Arizona. So we got to beat the Dogs and either Colorado or Arizona, and we're winning the North. Okay, in other words, we can afford to lose 1 loss as long as it's not the Apple Cup, right? So that's simple as that. We can afford 1 loss. We're not going to get in our minds, that we can lose and get a little back off the gas pedal, right? We're not going to do that like we did with Oregon in the second half. We're up 27-0, and we can just kind of coast now. No. Even though we can lose 1 game except the Apple Cup, let's not put that in our minds. Let's win out, right? So run the table. It's kind of crazy. Most people can't run the table, but why not? We've got Gardner Minshew with the small G. So Oregon and Stanford, by the way, they are done. They are done. So basically, Cougs are almost ready to seal it. Unless the Huskies lose at home to the Beavs, it's all about the AC. It's all about the Apple Cup, and we've seen it before. We have seen it before coming down to the AC. 8-1 feels pretty good, right? It really does. And this was, in the past years, the Cougs in the past have always found a way to lose. And now we're finding a way to win, and this all that stuff is in the past. And so, this team is different. The season is different. To get to a championship, you have to go through games like this, like the one with Cal. You just have to. There's going to be challenges, and Stanford at times was a challenge. That was not a gimme. There were times on Stanford that was a nail biter. So, total offensive yards, we have the advantage. But look at Wilcox's defense. We're talking about Cal now. Back to Cal. He's a good coach, but Tracy Claeys has found a way to win. And it's just not the same defense, that Washington State had under Alex Grinch. We're playing harder and creating more turnovers, right? So creating big plays and red zone turnovers. That is huge, red zone turnovers. Hey, we're going to be right back and talk about Colorado, the Buffaloes, the Buffs, next, right here on the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the PodcastCoug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at podcastcoug.com.
welcome back to the second half of the podcast, Coug. I'm James Laurie, and the song that put Boulder, Colorado on the map, here it is.
Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much and that's an issue, but I'm okay. Hey, you tell your friends it was nice to meet them, but I hope I never see them again. I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car, and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop. No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder. Pull the sheets right off the corner of the mattress that you stole from your roommate back in Boulder. We ain't ever getting older.
Welcome back to the second half of the podcast, Coug. And I'm James Laurie. Hey, that what a great song, but the Chainsmokers and Closer, and the song, the smash hit that put Boulder on the international map of the whole world. I think that song was number one in the Billboard charts for 12 weeks in a row. Closer, and Stealing My Mattress from Boulder. Wouldn't that be cool if there was a song, number one hit song for 12 weeks in the 12 weeks in a row, all over it's an international smash hit, and it said Pullman instead of Boulder. Crazy. Anyway, welcome back. Second half, Cougs and the Buffaloes. The Buffs back and forth history since Colorado joined the Pac-12, alternating wins in each meeting, really back and forth. And win, lose. And in fact, I remember the first time that I could remember in a long time where we were bringing in this is when Colorado was not in the Pac-12. It was the year of 9/11. It was at 2001, September 11th, 2001. We had scheduled Colorado at Martin Stadium, and back then we just did not see a lot of big teams, big opponents coming to Martin, and just because of the size of our stadium. And so I was so excited. We had scheduled the University of Colorado Buffaloes on somewhere around September 11th, 2001, and frankly, the game was postponed because of 9/11, and I was really looking forward to that because it was really at the time, I think, not Minnesota, but it was Madison. Wisconsin came to Pullman years ago. Was it Northwestern or Wisconsin? We've had, but someone from the Big Ten. But that's about it. And then we scheduled Colorado. And then that game was postponed, and it never happened. Well, it did a couple years later. But then, of course, history, Pac-12 with Utah and Colorado coming in. And as a result, both teams, Washington State and Colorado, have gone back and forth, win, lose history since the Pac-12, since Colorado joined the Pac-12. So alternating wins just about every other year. Cougs won last year. So hopefully this back and forth streak comes to an end. It's number 8 in the country. Washington State, we're 8-1. We've won 5 Pac-12 games in a row. Colorado's 5-4. You know, it's 12:30 kickoff, national stage, ESPN out of Folsom Field in Boulder. I love to ski. I'm a skier. I try to go to Colorado at least every couple of years. Love the skiing in Colorado. Boulder's not really close to anything as a major destination resort. But anyway, back to the game. Now, 3:30 is the East Coast time on ESPN National. So the whole country is going to see our game, which is great. They're not going to see it at 10:45 at night, right? Which most of them, everybody's sleeping at least around 11 o'clock when we have a 7:45, 7:30 game. So this is perfect. Best start time and exposure of the season. Washington State's favored by 5.5 points. The Buffs have a 4-game losing streak, and they lost a 42-34 to Tucson, Arizona last week. So Colorado's defense has been kind of mediocre at best. The Buffs have lost their first game of the season against USC, and really the past 4 games, all losses. The Buffs struggled mightily against the pass in most of these recent losses to Oregon State and Arizona. The Beavs threw 345 yards and 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, and the Wildcats, they had like 350 yards, 4 TDs last Saturday. So the Buffs, they've been without a few of their key pieces in their defense secondary, including starting strong safety Evan Worthington. He's an all Pac-12 honorable mention performer. And so, he missed the Arizona game with a concussion. So, and then, you've got Laviska Shenault. He returns for Colorado. The Cougs need some help. We need to come up with a game plan because Shenault's dangerous. Shenault on the field with Colorado is 5-1. Without him, the Buffs are 0-3. It's simple as that. We got to shut down Shenault. I like that. Shut down Shenault, right? Despite losing 4 consecutive games, the 5-win Buffaloes are still close to a bowl game. And they're not completely out of the picture when it comes to winning tightly on that Pac-12 South. So Cougs may not see, the same Colorado team in its best form, but it's unlikely the Buffs will lay down for the Cougs either. I don't think they're just going to lay down for us. So last year, Cougs beat the Buffaloes in Pullman. It was an absolute shutout at 28-0 with Luke Falk. And, Colorado had a great start this year, 5-0. And then they lose to Oregon State big time. And what a defining letdown of the season regarding the past 2 weeks. It's been very disappointing for Colorado. So when you're Minshew and Pelluer, you just jump on this bus early and they're, jump on Colorado, they're going to implode, right? So, it could be a shootout, but, we're going to throw the football. And Colorado's going to throw the football as well. They lead the conference in turnover margins. The team is real mature. They win, but we're winning, and we just got to focus on the next game. We don't get too wrapped up in the moment. That's one thing I like about it. We're not getting too wrapped up. There's a little bit of talk about Minshew being on the Heisman, at least getting invited to New York, and our number 8 ranking. But I don't think we're getting too wrapped, right? Look at game day. Game day, we did not, we just performed so well with that national stage with game day in the morning. So I think we're fine mentally. This is the mark of a championship team. So if we win on Saturday, is there any guarantee to go to the championship game? I just don't think so. Like I said in the first part of the podcast, Coug, we've got Arizona, Washington. We can lose to Colorado. We can lose to Arizona, but we've got to beat Washington in the AC to get to the championship game, okay? We can lose one game, but it can't be the Apple Cup. So, hey, how about Washington State? The recruiting in the past couple of days, we are hauling in for the ages. We received 4 commits in a 24-hour span. It was amazing. Last Sunday and Monday, just crazy. 4 great commits we have hauled in. We just didn't add a few defensive linemen to our 2019 recruiting class. We also added an entire defensive line and a rush linebacker too. Can you imagine? So what we've accomplished on the recruiting trail between Sunday night and Monday is monumental for the program, down the road. We're talking down the road. So let's take a break. Before we do, what does this mean to the Cougs and line coach, Jeff Phelps? He's got a committed group of recruits already for 2019. That's just phenomenal. But let's take a break here and talk about the future. The future is Tennessee. Mike Leach interviewed at Tennessee last summer or last year, and he didn't, obviously was very quiet about it. That there's going to be schools that are going to be offering him $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, $7 million a year. There just are. Now, not everybody's going to be a good fit because they want that political correctness in their press conferences. Okay, so, Washington State is a perfect fit, and I hope Mike Leach is content. The only thing I would say is sometimes it takes a few aircraft, unless he's flying on flights chartered right into Pullman International Airport, right? But when you got to go to Spokane and down to Pullman, that's otherwise, hey, you can, $3.5 million, $4 million goes a long way in Pullman. So let's hope we can hold on to Mike for several years. And if not, we are loaded up on depth. We are definitely loaded up. So we've got our defensive line all figured out. 2019 recruiting class looks just fabulous. And back to Colorado, Laviska Shenault. We talked about Shenault. He's got this day-to-day toe injury, and we're not going to know to Saturday's game if he's going to play. So he injured himself in the second half of the USC game. He caught 60 passes, 780 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that doesn't include 5 rushing touchdowns. Guy's just amazing. So Shenault, he's played all 4 quarters for the Buffaloes. When he has played all 4 quarters, Colorado is 5-0. When he hasn't, they're 0-4. So, the question is Shenault going to play? I mean, they have had incredible success when Chenault's playing. And when he's not in the game, they lose. That's just the way it's been this year. Colorado was ranked at one time at 19th in the country. So they've got 4 consecutive losses, and they've got tons of injuries, right? So, but they are chasing bowl eligibility. Shenault is listed as day-to-day. It's going to be a game day decision with Coach Mack. So, even with him back, Colorado could still be hurting a wide receiver. They got 2 wide receivers out. So another high-impact injury has been to safety Evan Worthington. He left the Oregon State game with a concussion. So Worthington or no Worthington, the Cougs are still wary of the Buffaloes really that are capable of what they're doing in the secondary. CU has a knack for producing pro-level cornerbacks and safeties in the NFL. I mean, they've got some players, right? They do have some players. So we got to be ready. Got to be ready to go. So injuries can be especially gut-wrenching, for a team that's lost, 2 games by a single touchdown. The Buffs took on Arizona at overtime, losing a heartbreaker, 42-34. Then they got beat up by a little in the USC game, and then 3 games I think they were they could have won. So, the Buffs have just had the short end of the stick this year. They're kind of down a little bit. I mean, this would be their biggest win in many, many, many years, knocking off a number 18. This would be a marquee, huge win for Colorado. So we've got to be ready. Minshew has not let us down once. And it's exciting. Isn't this great? We got about 3 weeks left of college football. Then we've got another game after that, right? And then maybe another game after that. So remember, if you haven't reserved your Rose Bowl tickets, jump on it now. Get on that airfare. Lots of hotels in Southern California, by the way. Lots. Take your kids to Disneyland. You won't regret it, right? Hey, that's it for the Podcast Coug. That's it for the episode of the Podcast Coug. We're going to catch you next week. Enjoy football Saturday, and go Cougs.
Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much and that's an issue, but I'm okay. Hey, you tell your friends it was nice to meet them, but I hope I never see them again. I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car, and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop. No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder. Pull the sheets right off the corner of the mattress that you stole from your roommate back in Boulder. We ain't ever getting older.
listening to the Podcast Coug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.